Here we go. We are live. Welcome to another episode of Darian Talks UTSA. Yes, there's a lot to talk about today. UTSA has kicked off spring ball this week. Excited about that. We also had some highlights and things to chat about that happened in the pro day with a lot of guys from UTSA, trying out their dreams, man, going out into the pro day and trying to impress NFL teams. We'll talk about some of the key takeaways from that. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel and like the video so we can continue to grow the community. I love when football is actually going on. We're not in season, but spring ball sort of feels like we're in season, even though we're not going to get a spring game, which is kind of bummy. But UTSA has been posting some clips here and there. I'm hoping that they give us a little bit more. I think everybody is probably breaking those clips down, trying to figure out exactly which player is doing what, so on and so forth. And we obviously got some guys who are attending those practices. I look forward to having some of those guys on the show here to sort of talk about that, but I'll wait to the end of spring for that. But there's a couple of topics that I wanted to get into to kick off the show today. I'll get into the comments later. The comment box is pretty light today, so for those of you who's here, make sure you guys go drop a comment with any questions, thoughts, or whatever you have about UTSA football. But there's a couple of things I want to sort of talk about here in the very beginning. And let's see. Let me make sure I have the correct graphic here. Trailers comments. That's what we're going to go with. So, yeah, the first thing I want to talk about is some of Coach Traylor's comments, right? So, here's the sort of big news that I took away. Shout out to Greg Luca doing a great job for San Antonio Express News. He reported that Coach Traylor sort of in an interview spoke after one of the practices, or I think after the first practices, that he's going to try a different approach and he's going to go back to how he was when he first got to UTSA in terms of being strict. And he mentioned being more buttoned up and tightening the reins a little bit. I think that's a huge thing. What has been one of the most common things that we've griped about all last season, and what we're still griping about even here in the offseason, and it's been about how much UTSA was penalized in 2024. It was a huge deal. UTSA was one of the worst teams when it came to penalty yardage last season, giving up over 80 yards per game due to penalties. I think we averaged around eight penalties a game, which is something you can't do, right? You're not going to be a very good team. You're not going to win conference championships with us being that undisciplined. I mean, there were some games where it literally, in my opinion, played a huge part in why we lost the game. So it's really good to hear that he is recognizing these things, and he's going to emphasize that in the spring and make sure he changes his approach to make sure guys are following instructions and being punished. Is one of the things I think we talked about last week as well. Someone asked me in the comments, what are some of the things that Traylor and the staff can do to sort of cut down on some of these things? And my response to that was, well, they're going to probably be a little bit more of disciplinarians, right? They're going to enforce policy, enforce rules and guidelines and guardrails for guys to play within. And if you color outside the lines at all, you're going to be punished for that, right? And I think that's a huge part of accountability. That's a huge part of players not wanting to make mistakes, because not only do you let your teammates down, you let the coaching staff down and the supporters as well. So anyway, I was very, very pleased to hear him say that he's addressing that this year. He also talked about some of the things within the play that's outside of penalties that he wanted guys to be a little bit more buttoned up on. And that could be technique type deals. That could be, situational things with play calling and things like that, and putting guys in position, drops and all those type of things. One of the big things that our friend, of course, good friend of mine, Nick Carazales, said on Twitter to me earlier today is one of the big things that he was really frustrated about, and what he's going to be looking at. What he's going to be looking at is, are we going to have guys, at that receiver position that are going to hold on to the ball? That's a big deal. We had a lot of notable drops. I mean, obviously the notable drop that we had in Texas State that could have changed the complexion of the game, I think was a big deal. But we had drops along the entire season. I forget what drop we had late in the game that pretty much ended the game. Was that the East Carolina? I don't remember the team, but it was a late drop, and it was bad. We had one of our tight ends made a drop as well in one of the high leverage moments in these games. So I'm sure Coach Traylor was talking about some of those things as well, right? Like, it's not just the penalties, it's the drops, it's the bad mistakes, it's the boneheaded plays and things like that. We got to cut those down. So shout out to Coach Traylor and shout out to the staff for recognizing some of those things and looking like they're going to address them. The next thing I want to talk about too, this is not the first time I heard this, but I got a DM from someone over this past week, and they shared some frustrations. One second. They shared some frustrations with us not having a spring game. And you guys get in the comments what you guys think about this. But they shared some frustrations about UTSA not being in the spring game, and how that could be off-putting to some people. And it's off-putting to a lot of people, but I think college football is changing. But excuse me, I think the interesting thing that this person brought up was about player exposure and what players like, what players want, and where college football is going. And this notion of, are we hiding players? Or we, so for example, the contrast in this discussion, which I thought was it was something I hadn't thought about, but I thought it was actually a good point. The point was, well, if you look at a team like Colorado, right? And obviously they're on the extreme then, but you look at a team like Colorado, they're all about exposure, right? They're all about, especially nowadays, they're all about getting their name out there, building their brand so they can have NIL, being popular, being that face that brands want to connect with, and so on and so forth. They do that better than anybody in the country right now. And then you sort of look at UTSA's situation, and I'm sort of blending conversations I've had with over the last couple of weeks, but that discussion was like, how many players from UTSA have, huge Twitter accounts? How many players from UTSA have sort of these media teams following them and documenting their processes and documenting what they're doing outside of who does it for the school? And I know, like I said, some of this stuff is Dion and his brand and him sort of making sure his team gets the picture. But you see other bigger programs do it as well. Texas, I think, does a good job at a lot of this stuff. Obviously, whenever the players from those bigger schools have, whenever they commit, have huge engagement in general. But I thought it was an interesting point of like, one of the things that will attract more exposure and opportunities for NIL one of the things that will attract more of that if we had players who had big followings already. If you had players with big followings, brands obviously want to associate themselves with that because there's an exposure element to that brand for giving this person money. Because we have to think about it as well, is like, we think about the NIL side of the token from a fan and a supporter's perspective, and we think, well, listen, we just want to donate and give money so we can have good players and the players can get paid, so on and so forth. But when you look at some of these bigger corporations and these bigger sponsors that can come out and throw a lot of money at someone, they're not going to want to give someone, $100,000 NIL deal, you know, when they don't have when they only have 1,000 followers, right? Like some of these companies are trying to push their name out there and they associate with these bigger names because, hey, guess what? This person has a this person has a big following, and if we have this particular athlete doing a campaign for us, people are going to buy our product or service because this athlete is using it and telling you to buy it, and so on and so forth. And that's just a thing that I hadn't thought about. And I think that's a really interesting point that um, could come that I can see where someone gets that. I don't know if the spring game solves that, right? I don't know if us not having a spring game like hurts us on that level. I'm sure there's some sort of impact. But whenever I think about player exposure and player visibility, that's an interesting piece. Like I'll be curious to hear from you guys. A lot of you guys live in San Antonio. Obviously, the quarterback is always going to have a following, and people are going to know who the quarterback is, right? Like that one's always a thing. And I know Frank Harris was a pretty big star, but Frank Harris had, a smile that can light up a room, and he was charismatic, and him and the guy, him and his teammates were very good about the banter and stuff they do on Twitter and things like that. But we're sort of seeing a different type of flavor right now with some of the guys. And you look at our quarterback, Owen McCown, and from a Twitter standpoint, I'm not sure what he has on Instagram and stuff like that, but he has 2,300 followers. Obviously, he has to make a name for himself. But I'd ask you guys the question: Is there a player right now that has a sort of huge following that I may not be aware of? I'd be curious if you guys know of anybody, let me know. But I think the player exposure piece is pretty different. And whenever I think about it, we probably don't have enough exposure for the players. But what do they do to solve that? I don't know. I don't know. And is that something that Playfly does, or one of these partners that we have? Like, are they going to be actively, doing things like this and hooking these guys up with, social media teams and things like that to grow their brands as well? All right, let's get to some of the questions here. Mike says, regarding visibility, I think UTSA can do a better job promoting individual athletes in this new world of NIL. I feel like we're missing opportunities by not promoting our most charismatic. That's exactly what I'm talking about. I'm glad this is the first comment here. Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's a thing that I haven't really spent much time thinking about other than this week, because, like I said, I've spoken some about this with other folks, but in some of my research and talking to some of the folks who I can't not get them on the show, but they'll talk to me in DM and stuff like that. But I've been having conversations with some of the folks who are closer to the NIL piece, not necessarily connected to UTSA, but some folks that are looking to, build a business in NIL. Talking to some of the folks who are owners of consultancy firms, owners of social media firms who are helping out athletes, even at really big schools. And in those conversations, a lot of one of the most consistent things I heard was, well, these players want the exposure, and some of these players at bigger schools are going the extra mile to make sure they are getting content to upload on social media to grow their following. And hence, if you do that and you teach them how to post content, when to post content, what times to post content, them understanding the algorithm, or them having a team behind them that understands the algorithm and things like that, it can better their chances at getting sponsors. So, I think you're spot on. I think it's one of those things where UTSA, because of the lack of resources that we have in general, we're going to lag behind some of the more premium competition in that. Obviously right now, that's a thing across some of the P4 schools, but I don't think it's made it to G5 yet. Although I do see some G5 players who come in with huge followings and things like that. So I don't know. It's a real interesting it's an interesting situation. But yeah, I do think we should definitely spend more time promoting some of the more um, uh, charismatic athletes that we have, because that's also going to put butts in seats. People, I can't tell you how many times, like, I go around whenever I do go up to San Antonio, and I'm just thinking about going there during the Frank Harris era, and like everybody is just Frank Harris down jerseys and things like that. And it's because like it's funny, if anybody here watches First Take, Stephen A always talks about box office. This player's box office. Uh, you know, he'll say it about Kyrie Irving or LeBron James or somebody like that. That people are going to, going to be going down the turnstiles to watch. You want to book your ticket because you want to see this person perform, right? We need that same element too. I think Frank Harris was a box office player in that way, right? People in San Antonio gravitated toward him because he was charismatic, because he won for the program. He's San Antonio grown, and that made people want to come watch. So I just think the more exposure our athletes get, the better. And I do think UTSA has the opportunity to build stars in that way. I do. And look, I mean, they should be doing that with McCown, right? The fact of the matter is McCown had a really, 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 really good second half of the season, and he cemented his spot as the number one quarterback at UTSA. And now that you have a cemented number one guy, let's put him on a press tour. Right? Mike says, I'm glad we are addressing penalties right from the start. We cannot have the same results as last year and be one of the most penalized teams in the country. Absolutely. If we want to at all compete for a conference title, because I do think we have a dark horse chance to do that. Especially if we kick off the year pretty well, which I think we have some matchups that I feel pretty good about in the beginning of the season. But if we want to have any shot at a conference title and hanging up another banner, we can't be penalized the way we were this year. Just can't happen. Can't happen. They lose us games. And the bad part about our penalties were they were clutch time penalties. They were big play, high leverage moments, just really, really unfortunate situations. So yeah, gotta be better. Shout out to ATX. What's up to you? TNT Sports says, good evening, everyone. Birds up. Birds you. I think you meant birds up. There you go. So Mike says, so is it safe to say the OC is on the hot seat? I have not gotten a indication that the OC is on the hot seat. I guess my question to you, Mike, is what has happened or transpired that has put him on the hot seat? That's my question. What's happened that's put him on a hot seat that has people worried, or have you worried that he's in some trouble? Curious. Scotty says no, he's not. Hello, Miss Carol. Good to see you or hear from you. Scotty says, I'm good with no spring game, but I do think they are missing if they don't have some kind of fan appreciation. Absolutely. And I've beat the drum on this a lot. It doesn't seem like they are, if I'm just being completely honest. It does not seem like they are. But yeah, I think I don't want to put too much pressure on some of these folks because, it's what's weird is like, I don't know. What I do know is they are working with very, very limited resources. Like, I have heard from some folks close to the program and close to some people that I trust that if they tell me something, I'm very very sure that it is true. But our the, like all the money goes to like trying to keep players and to some of the facility stuff, but for things like this, they hardly have any resources to do these things. Like they have to budget and plan very very strategically to make anything happen. So it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, but we'll see. We'll see. Let's see. Extreme says, as a player, do you like the idea of more 7-on-7 fan event instead of a spring game? I feel like it could hurt chances to make a name for yourself on the spring depth chart. 7-on-7 is tricky. It doesn't 7-on-7 is tricky because so here's the piece that I understand where Traylor and any coach is coming from on this whole thing. What Traylor, and he said this in the I think the article with that Greg Luca wrote. I suggest you guys go check it out. He said that in a nutshell, they want to be as efficient as possible, and they only have a certain amount of practices, and that spring game is technically a practice. So because they're worried about scouts and people coming in to, get an early read on what UTSA will do, for those things, they want to make sure they get guys out healthy, but they also have to do sort of have or play with sort of a vanilla, their vanilla playbook, right? They're not going to do anything complex. They're going to stick to basic things. And how much can you really get out of that? So they feel like, and just another practice, a closed practice would be great. And largely, like, is that more efficient? Yes. But I can tell you that, like, as everyone knows, football is a lot more it's a lot more than just the X's and O's piece. And he also talked another thing too. And I know I'm this is a long way of answering your question, but he also said something that's very interesting in there as well about, like, he doesn't have to do as much of the fundraising stuff. So he's sort of just locked in and focused on these sorts of things. What it tells me is somebody's probably going to have to go down to the office and say, "Hey, Coach Traylor, we need you to do this fan appreciation thing because we got to sell some tickets." I can tell you this, and I'd say keep an eye out for this one. If you start to see there to be real panic around season ticket sales and us really not hitting the mark for season ticket sales, you might see something get thrown on the calendar late. You might. But I would not suggest that they do a 7-on-7 event that will count as a practice, as a fan event, because they're not going to get much out of that. 7-on-7 is cool, but the quarterbacks have a ton of time. It's not the real thing. It's not the real thing. But I get your question. And, like, the 7-on-7 is not going to have much. It's not going to hurt you on a depth chart. Like, I can tell you now, the depth chart is going to move on scrimmage day, after scrimmage day. So they're probably going to have 3, maybe 4 scrimmages, probably around 3 scrimmages this spring, right? People are going to practice, and there will be, like, if somebody have a bad practice, you'll see a coach. If there's a real big, like, position battle where it can go either way, a coach will probably, just to mess with the guys, see how they respond. They'll move, they'll make changes on the depth chart almost daily when they're doing a situation like that. But the real changes come on scrimmage time, because that's live action. People got to bring their hats with them. You got to be physical. That's when it's a game-like atmosphere. At least in practice, they're going to bring in referees and the whole bit. You're not going to really get a lot of that in the 7-on-7 environment. So yeah, a 7-on-7 thing wouldn't really hurt. Wouldn't really be a thing that's going to move something on the depth chart. And spring games don't move things on the depth chart as much as you may think, because like I said, they're just doing vanilla type showcase stuff for fans and stuff to get excited about or to get a preview of some of the players. Mike says, I'm okay with no spring game as long as they have a fan engagement event in place of the spring game. If done right, it's a great opportunity to promote season ticket sales. Yeah, that's what it, and it's I sort of have the same answer as I had with Extreme before this. Is you'll see if season ticket sales are not meeting their targets, you'll probably see some action. You'll probably see some action then. Let's see. This quarterback situation is interesting. It's interesting. Not like I told you guys on my I'll get into this in a little bit. Maybe at the end of the show. But I told you guys one of the things I'm watching the most is QB2. Who wins that battle? QB2. That's nobody. That's flying under the radar. I feel like it could just be me, but I feel like, and to be fair, I don't consume other UTSA podcasts, and it's no disrespect or anything to any of them. It's just because if I'm talking UTSA football, I don't like to be biased or pulled in any directions. So I intentionally refrain from watching podcasts or live chats sort of like this. But let me know in the comments what you guys think here. How many folks are out there like watching this QB2 battle, like actively talking about it as much? I think I put it on my Twitter. What was it, yesterday? I believe it's sort of the number one thing I'm watching going into the season, because you can ask some people that the quarterback position, the QB2 position, is in some cases the most can end up being one of the most important positions in the game. And I'm just there's a lot going on with the quarterback 2 position, and there's a lot of people chomping at the bit for that one. And I can tell you, in my DMs, that has been the most noise I've heard is about the QB2 situation. Just random. I like it though. I like it. It's interesting. Cody Chase says, I understand that there are other priorities for facilities right now, like the basketball facility. But how far off is the indoor covered football field in your opinion? That is incredibly important in my opinion. I don't think we're going to see it anytime soon. And there was at one point where we committed to this, committed to that. The price is going to continue to go up, and it's not. I don't. Things just keep. It seems like it gets pushed back or it gets deprioritized. I think Traylor has stopped talking about it. I want to say someone came out, I want to say Campos or something like that, said that they've sort of pivoted in terms of their priorities, and they want to get it, some of these other facilities done for some of our other sports teams who have done well also. But yeah, it's weird. It's weird that it was such a big deal. It was always talked about, and then it got put on the back burner. But I think the thing is, like, I'm sure Traylor's like, you know what? I'd rather have money to give to my players than a covered pavilion. I will just deal with what we have to deal with now. So, yeah, that's what it's looking like on that front. Both I said, who would you say is the most charismatic player? I have no idea. That's the thing. That's the point. That's the point, and why I thought that was such a interesting topic to bring up. I have no idea I have no idea who the most charismatic UTSA player is right now, because I haven't seen enough of them, right? Like, I haven't seen enough interaction. I haven't seen enough of them on the cameras. I mean, you see some of it. I think, to be fair, I think UTSA's video team does an excellent job. Their graphics team also does an excellent job. It's funny. I hit up their graphics guy. He's completely left me on red. I think he's their I think he's their graphics guy, but he does like freelance stuff. And I was like, hey, yo, bro, you want to help me out? Nothing. But anyway, no. Yeah, we just don't know. We just don't know, and that's the problem. We need to know. We need to figure out. I think that's going to create a little bit more excitement, anticipation if you put some of these players out there because people are going to gravitate toward that. And that's the thing. You're asking that question, and I'm with you, brother. I have no idea. No idea. UTSA shadowing. I'm always surprised how fast things move. The basketball facility only a couple years ago after the race is a good example. But the main question is what comes first? What comes first? Arena, baseball, softball, or covered pavilion, I'm assuming. I have no idea, but I bet it won't be the covered pavilion. I bet it won't be the covered pavilion. It's a weird thing to me because it's a weird thing to me because at what point, and this is going to sound bad because I don't want to, I'm not like trying to say that we should not prioritize better facilities for the other sports. I'm not trying to say that. But I think UTSA football is in a very important time right now that I think can be transformational for the entire university. We have a coach that is a proven winner. He's won at UTSA. He's still doing well with limited resources in a environment that is changing very fast. And I think you have to take advantage of that because you're not going to find those everywhere. You're not going to find those everywhere. We have a coach who has a lot of attention from other people, from bigger schools, who has openly expressed what he wants. He's openly expressed what he thinks it takes to build the program and the team that he wants that can be a winner. And I think we should listen to that because he is under his stewardship. I genuinely feel like we can almost put the program and university almost like a notch up, a whole level up just off the back of this guy. And I think to me, what I would do is I would push all my chips to the table and bet on him. Bet on him. Football is already the thing that reigns supreme in terms of the revenues and stuff like that, in terms of the money that the athletics department brings in or generates. I think while we have a coach like this, we should prioritize getting that coach what he needs. And I'm telling you, like, if you prioritize that, the other programs and the other sports within UTSA, it's just going to benefit. They'll still get what they get. Yes, it might be a little bit delayed. And like I said, I'm not trying to like say like that they don't deserve what they're getting because they do, like with these new facilities and things like that. But we are at a period of time where we have a coach, and we're fortunate enough to have a coach that is as good as he is. And I'm telling you, I really do think that he could take us to heights that we can't even imagine. But I mean, who knows if he continues? Here's my thing: the thing that I always be worried about, if and when. I don't want to say when, but if we lose Coach Traylor, it'll be because at some point he either gets the dream job that he's always wanted, and that could very well happen because he's that good of a coach. But but the other reason will probably be due to the lack of resources in some way, shape, or form, and he's just sick of it. That'll be the thing. So anyway, I digress on that point, but those are my thoughts. Shout out to Anthony. He says, happy Wednesday, Road Runners. Excited to see how spring practice goes and who are the names that impress. I am excited to see the same exact thing, my friend. Mike says last week you said the NIL head wasn't ready to come on the show because they wanted to settle in their position. I feel like this is a job where you got to hit it running, not ease in my opinion. I agree with you 100%. Which is why I was like, you know what? And to be fair, he just said later this year. I'm going to read the text out. I'm not going to show it, but I'll read it to see exactly what he said because I don't want to misquote or like misrepresent what he said. Yeah, he just said later in the year. I don't know what that means. That could mean in the summer. That could mean, that could mean in the summer. That could mean after the season. I just think he means like late after the season or maybe sometime during that particular point in time. I also heard from someone else from Playfly though, who they didn't mention anything about coming on the show, but they did say that they'd be transparent about some of the corporate sponsorship deals they're landing and things like that, and said they'd sort of let me know when they got something to tell. And they reached out to me. I did not reach out to them for that. I actually didn't know that account was associated with Playfly at the time. But yeah, I mean, listen, I agree 100%. I think that's a run. I'm going to have it's a tricky one because, like I said, my good friend, as everybody knows, David Glasgow did interview for that role, and I think he was one of the finalists for that role. And part of his interview prep was, thinking about, hey, like, what does it look like? Because you kind of got to go into that role and you got to be creative as a salesperson, and you have to sort of craft a plan and an approach and get in and do your thing. So that was part of what part of the exercise he went through, and him and I talked about some of those plans, and he sort of told me like, hey, this is what I'm thinking. And then based on some of the conversations that he had with Playfly, they were like, yeah, that sounds about like what we'd about what that sounds about like what we'd expect. So yeah, I everybody is different strokes for different folks. Like I said, I'm not saying that he's saying next year or something like that. I'm not going to ask again. We'll see if he wants to come on, he can. But we'll see. I think it's one of those things to hit the ground. I mean, he's hitting the ground running on Twitter. I see a lot of his tweets. He's definitely super supportive of the program on Twitter and things like that. But he's a big time sales guy at his former role, and I'm sure he has a plan that he wants to execute. And I don't know. And here's the thing too. It's like maybe he wants to come on when my platform and my show is like in peak season, and my show is going to be peak season during the season. And right now it isn't, and I completely understand that as well. So maybe he wants a bigger reach or something like that. But yeah, I honestly don't know. I don't know. We'll see what happens with that. But I agree with you too. I do feel like you got to hit that running and not ease in as well. But that's just me. I don't have the role. I don't have the job. So we'll see what happens. Shout out to Angela. She's always going to remind everybody to make sure you like and share. But I did good this time at the very beginning of the show. I definitely got it in this time. But yes, again, like and share, please. All right. Andrew says, why build a basketball practice facility when we have one of the worst stadiums in the country? Makes no sense. Renovate or build a new basketball facility and practice and play in there. I don't disagree with you at all, my brother. I don't disagree with you at all. I don't get it. And that's what I mean, right? And I didn't want to go too specific on some of this stuff because people have opinions about how specific I go on some of it. And I don't try to like intentionally call people out, but like I'll go back to what I said before, but I won't go as long. When you got a coach like Coach Traylor, when we're in this transformative time in the NIL space, and you got a coach this good who is probably over delivering based on the resources he has to his disposal, at this point in time, take advantage of that and give that guy what he wants. Like I said, because he will bring everybody else up. Football will bring everybody else up. But I I'll leave it there. I'll leave it there. But I agree with you. I don't understand it. I don't understand it. uh Andrew says embarrassing when we have televised games and they cut to the whole arena. Yeah. Yeah. I've seen people on Twitter gripe about that pretty extensively. Marketing, who's the guy campaign. Yeah, I mean, are you yeah, I'm assuming you're like giving an example of what they can do. Um they need to do something. They need to do something. But I'm not going to crush the marketing folks. They're trying or anything like that. I'm not saying they are. They're just working with very very thin resources from what I've been told. Um, let's see. This is the last question actually. If you got any more questions, get them in. Andrew says NIL director at the largest school in San Antonio should be an easy job. Have Valero, Whataburger, and various other companies right there. Listen, I'm sure they're going to go in and reel in some companies, right? I think, but like, here's the thing, and this is one of the questions that I would like to ask some of these people. But like, what is the company like? A lot of these companies do all this stuff they want a return on what that investment is. They're not just donating and I mean, sometimes they're donating to get tax breaks and all that type of stuff. Obviously, that type of thing happens, but a lot of them too, like it's another form of marketing, right? I mean, it's literally sponsorship is literally a form of marketing. Um, and if you don't have if like we can't deliver the return on that or deliver something attractive to these companies like Valero, Whataburger, so on, and we work with these companies already. Don't get me wrong. Or UTSA works with these companies already. I try to stop with the we thing, but I can't help it. Anyway, UTSA works with the company with these companies already. I just think that like we got to get people like you want to get more season tickets sold and you want to have a higher average attendance. You know why? Because you can charge for more ads at games, right? That's a thing, right? You can I even look at some of these social accounts, some of the players. Like if this guy's going to come in and say, "Hey, I want to like get NIL deals for players," like I said before, you got to have some of these players have to have some like pretty decent exposure already. I don't know if we have a ton of players like that, right? And I don't know if they have a team behind them that's going to coach and train and tell them XYZ. Like, I don't know. It's a tough thing. Listen, by the way, I'm trying to help too for the corners. If you have not seen, I am from now through the end of spring, I am going to donate to or I'm going to do like an NIL type thing with one of the corners based on the followers I get up to 3,000. My post went out March 19th. From that time to today, I think I've gotten 20, 30. I've gotten 36. Is that 36? Yeah, I've gotten 36 followers. So we got some work to do. A follower gets $1. For every follower, it's going to be $1. I'm going to try to like, I'll probably extend that if we don't get, because I don't want to like, oh, we only ended up getting to 100 followers or something. I'm not going to like disrespect one of the players and just give them $100. Which I mean, I'm not saying that's a disrespectful amount of money, but yeah, I want to give the whole 12-20 because I think that's actually helpful. But like, it's an easy way I think for folks to help donate. They just got to follow that costs you nothing, and it's UTSA stuff. I'm trying to build a community too, so I think that's a big time thing. So if you haven't, follow me on Twitter at Darian_UTSA. Um, you should do that. It'll help out the players. Let's see. Anthony says your thoughts on having a Thursday night game versus one of the top teams such as Tulane this season. Really wish this was on Saturday. However, what can we do besides promote and get fans on the school night? I mean, listen, it sucks, right? It really, 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 really sucks. I think what are you gonna do? We don't have any control on that. It's just unfortunate. It's a bad look at the draw. But Tulane's a big game. It's gonna be a huge game. And I think if they do it right, I mean, you could probably get a pretty good turnout. Like if you ain't got nothing to do on a Thursday night, man, like they could probably sell that. Tulane, I mean, when exactly in the schedule is the Tulane game? Because especially if like both teams are rolling at the time. Let's see. Tulane's gonna be October 30th. Ooh, the night before Halloween. Oh, you can get people to that one. You can get people to that one, I think. Yeah. Have a Halloween theme. Put us in the all black for that game or something like that. Yeah, we can figure that one out. Right? Like we can figure that one out. We can figure that one out. That's not the worst. That's not the worst one. I'll say. That's not the worst. Let me see. That's not the worst one, but yeah, the Thursday nights, Friday nights, it all sucks. It all sucks. But the night before the Halloween, there's gonna be a lot of partying. Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of partying. So yeah, I see your comment. The black and orange jerseys will be lit. Yeah, perfect. There's gonna be a lot of partying that night. So yeah, bro, I think they can figure that one out. 210 Danny says, are we getting a Darian Starling fan engagement event before the football season starts? I would love to do that. Yeah, I would love to do that, but I would need to set something up and get a certain amount of RSVPs. But if anybody has any ideas on like who would want to facilitate something like that or help facilitate something like that, I would love to come up to San Antonio and just hang out with y'all. Like we can do this in person, live, no cameras, just chit chatting and talking and spending some time, and having a good time. But yes, I would love to do something like that. So yeah, absolutely. I'll try to make that happen. I am not good at planning events and anything like that. So I need some help, but yeah, let's do it. Anthony says the old black and the black and orange jersey, absolutely. Or a new version of that. Yeah, they should definitely have a new version, but yeah, for sure. Melissa says, I finally get to catch you on a live stream, but when do you think we'll see the new uniforms from Nike? Great question. When is the UTSA Nike deal? When does it go into effect? Because right now the players are still in Adidas for spring ball. June 2nd. Okay. June 2nd. So yeah, probably around that time. Probably on June 2nd whenever it's official. They probably have settled on what the jerseys are going to look like. They probably show the players. They'll probably do something like show the players what the jerseys will look like at the end of the spring or something like that. And then we'll have to wait until June the 2nd or something like that to actually see it. But yeah, June the 2nd, I'm sure we'll see what the new jerseys and stuff like that looks like. On board with that idea. Yeah. Yeah, I think the engagement, what is it called? Or the fan event will be, or not fan. I hate to say fan because I don't see people. No one's a fan of me. But I just think it's the way I look at it is like we got a community here we're building, and yeah, like us gathering like that, that's dope. I think that would be cool, man. I would love to do that before the season starts at some point this summer or in the spring. It would have been great to do. So I was thinking about doing something like that, or at least it was pitched to me around the spring game. But that's the thing, like we don't have a spring game now, so there you go. But anyway, I think I'm gonna wrap here since we're out of questions. But I appreciate you guys for. No, we got one more. Shout out to Matt because he pointed out the fresh cut, and of course, yes, I I definitely got the I got a fade the other day. I feel good about it. Last few comments here. You're making it to the A&M game. Going to be a big test to see if we can be competitive after returning most of our players. We'll see. We'll see. I have not planned my schedule around which games I'm going to come to. If I'm being honest, I prefer to go to home games. I don't like to go to away games. But I prefer. I'm. There's home games that I'm looking at that I'm certainly going to try to be at. Obviously, the Texas State one is a very, very big one. The August 30th one is tricky because that's my mom's birthday week. So I typically am doing something around where my mom's going to be at. She obviously lives in Tyler, so probably won't be at A&M. Texas State, that one is circled for me. Yeah, that one's the one that's for sure circled right now, but I want to make it to 3 this upcoming season, so we'll see. At least 3. And then last one, always good to hear your commentary. Keep cooking. I'm gonna keep trying, man, as long as y'all keep showing up for sure. But anyway, I appreciate you guys for being here. If I did not get to any of your comments, questions, just hit me up on Twitter at Darian_UTSA. And yeah, I will catch you guys next week. Peace out.